All good things must come to an end. All not so good things must come to an end too. All things come to an end. Everything ends. The PFT PM hiatus run ends today because the hiatus ends today, July 25, 2025. On Monday, PFT Live returns on Peacock, Sirius XM 85, and wherever else it lives. Podcasts, clips that you'll see on PFT, on YouTube. Sky Sports Mix, 6 o'clock local time in the UK, Ireland, Scotland, all the other places and towns that have NFL fans and PFT fans who constantly email, when are you going to be back? Hey, you're going to be back. We know you're going to be back. Do you know you're going to be back? Yes, I'm aware. You don't need to email me. I'm aware that we'll be back on Monday, July 28th. Until then, this is it. I don't know whether to be sad or happy. I missed the first 2 days for medical reasons. Physical one day, medical appointment the next day. Every weekday since then. 5 weeks and 3 days. That would be 28 days of PFT PM content right here. Thank you to Pablo Torre, who joined me for one of those. Otherwise, I was flying solo. And as much as I love working with Chris, as much as I love working with Michael Hawley, as much as I love working with Devin McCourty, Shereen Williams, Miles Simmons, Rodney Harrison, anyone and everyone else who ever joins me on PFT Live, don't tell anyone. I kind of like it better this way. I kind of like having the microphone and being able to make my points and not have to lay out and let someone else talk. I can say whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want. Now, I would probably get sick of it quickly if they were to say it's just going to be you. Haven't gotten sick of it the last 5.5 weeks, and I am kind of sad that this part of it is ending. But again, PFT PM returns as needed. Any news that may happen after 9 o'clock Eastern on any given weekday or at night or on the weekend, you never know. All I have to do is come down, press a button, turn on a light, and off we go with whatever information needs to be shared, dissected, analyzed, etc. We start today with some information that needs to be shared, dissected, analyzed, whatever. The Raiders cutting defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. Just one season after giving him a 4-year deal. $110 million, with $57 million fully guaranteed. It's signing another $27 million or so on top of that became guaranteed earlier this year. Practical guarantee north of $80 million. Massive contract, massive investment, massive failure. Appeared in 5 games, suffered a Jones fracture in his 5th game with the Raiders, and was still injured. And look, a fight is going to play out within the confines of the collective bargaining agreement, grievance, voiding of guarantees, language of his contract. I've started on a post that has the actual language from his contract that would trigger a default and void the guarantees. That's the fight that the Bengals and Shamar Stewart are still engaged in. How are we going to shape this language? What is the impact of a default? That's going to be part of the fight. What does the contract say? What did Christian Wilkins do or not do? Is it medical? Is it something else? And when it turns nasty and when it becomes about money, companies that like to keep their money will make it about anything they can. They'll throw the kitchen sink at a guy. If they decide they don't like a guy and they're done with a guy, they will come up with anything they can. And I need to be careful here because things haven't been reported, and I don't know what's been verified, and I don't know what the grievances say, but I have reason to believe that it may be about more than just the injury and whether or not he needed a second surgery, whether he resisted, whatever the doctors say. There could be something else the Raiders are trying to throw at Christian Wilkins, either to leverage him into resolving this or maybe convincing an arbitrator to let them win. But, you know, as these things go, if you owe somebody, and I think the number is $35.2 million in remaining full guarantees this year and next year. If you owe that to someone and you have the right under your labor deal to stiff them and to claim that the guarantees have voided and you're going to cut them and not owe them another dime, what's their recourse? Their recourse is to try to get from you the thing that you would have paid them anyway. Okay, fine. Come and get us. If we lose, what do we owe you? What we would have owed you anyway. That's why most states have a provision on the books. I know there's one in West Virginia. I had more than a few cases over the years on behalf of individuals who, once you're gone from your workplace, whether you quit, whether you were fired, whether you retired, whatever, there's no longer an incentive to settle up with the employee on a regular basis. If somebody's showing up to work for you every day and you want them to keep working, you're going to pay them. Otherwise, at some point, they're going to say, I'm out. Once the person says, I'm out, or you say to them, get out, there's no longer an incentive to pay them. Oh, you want to come after us? Come after us. Well, most states, if not all states, have a provision that will enhance the penalties in the event that you have to go after someone to get the thing that you're owed. I'm not aware of anything like that in the CBA that would give Christian Wilkins extra as a disincentive to stiffing him. So the Raiders can just stiff him. Just stiff him. And are we right on this medical issue? I don't know. We'll stiff him, make him come get us. And maybe we'll throw some other stuff at him so we can squeeze him into taking a settlement that would be less than 100 cents on the dollar. And anything we save is gravy. Anything we do at this point, once we declare that this contract was a failure and that this commitment made by the last regime, Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce, once we decide they never should have paid that money, made that commitment, tied our hands with guaranteed money to Christian Wilkins, anything we save under 100 cents on the dollar, that's a win. Because it could just be they decided they don't like the guy. It could be they just decided they want to move on. He doesn't fit with what we're trying to do. He doesn't fit with the culture. He doesn't fit with the defense. We just don't like him. We don't like him. And we don't want to pay him. So we'll try to not pay him. And if we lose, so what? We pay him what we would have paid him anyway. At least we tried. We'll be paying attention to it. We'll be trying to figure it all out. I've got some feelers out on what else the Raiders may be trying to do here. But remember, just because you have a fully guaranteed contract, and fully guaranteed is a misnomer. It's not fully guaranteed. It's guaranteed for skill, injury, and cap. If you cut a player for reasons other than skill, injury, and cap, in theory, you don't have to pay them. This goes back to what the Ravens did with safety Earl Thomas. They owed him money that was guaranteed for skill, injury, cap. They cut him for a different reason. That's a way around guarantee. Now, that's separate from voiding the guarantee. In this case, it's possible that the Raiders voided the guarantee and eventually cut Christian Wilkins for a reason unrelated to skill, injury, cap. So you got a double whammy there. We voided the guarantee and we cut you for a reason unrelated to the thing that your money was guaranteed for. Come get us. Come get us. And if you win, we'll owe you what we would have owed you anyway. So we'll see how that plays out. And meanwhile, while it plays out, the Raiders are going to be stuck with those cap charges, and they were stuck with them anyway. So back to the original point. Anything we save here ultimately is gravy. Anything positive that Aaron Rodgers does this year with the Steelers, if he gets to the playoffs, is gravy. Because after 2 disastrous seasons with the Jets, the one way he can walk off into the sunset with his head held high is to make it to the playoffs. Let's show that the Jets' tenure was an aberration. 5-12 last year, his worst season as a full-time starter. That was a fluke. That's the Jets being the Jets. Now I'm with the Steelers, and I'm not going to be 5-12. I got a better chance of being 12-5. We'll see. Met with reporters yesterday after his first training camp practice, and he said that there are 6 or 8 teams that really have a chance to win the Super Bowl, maybe 10 or 12, and we're in that window of the 10 or 12. And we did this exercise earlier this month. Who are the teams that are really in the Super Bowl window? In the AFC, the powerhouse teams are the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Texans. They made it to the final 8 2 straight years. The Bengals, assuming they can get their act together early in the season. That's 5 right there. Oh, and the Chargers and Broncos looked pretty good last year too. That's 7. Where do the Steelers fit? We looked at the teams in the NFC as well. Eagles, duh. Lions, Rams, 49ers, Buccaneers. That's 5 right there. We're up to 11. 11? Is that 11 or 12? Packers, Vikings, Washington. I forgot about Washington. Look, if the Steelers are one of the top 10 or 12 teams heading into this year, it's number 12. If they even get a seat at the table, they're number 12. I'm not sure they are. And then the question becomes, if you are one of the 12, how do you get to the top of the mountain? And Rodgers had this cliched response about, it's about all the time we spend together in practice, the 17 practices, and in the lunchroom, and when we're having a snack, and how we interact, and yada, yada. And as he was saying that, he did one of his classic little asides where he made this comment about Mike Tomlin wanting to practice at the hottest time of the day. And that's interesting. And that's Aaron Rodgers' way of saying, I don't agree with that. Well, that's interesting, but I love it. Yeah, you got no choice. Mike wants to practice the hottest time of the day. That's interesting. And he laughed as he said it. But, my point is very simple. And I try to dabble in simple points because my aging and relaxed brain can only deal with simple points. If all these things about how you interact on the field, in the locker room, while you're eating, while you're having a snack, whatever, if all those things help determine the climb from 12 to 1, if you've got a quarterback who is saying anything that suggests directly or indirectly, expressly or implicitly, that he's not fully on board with what the coach is doing, that can be a detriment. And it's never going to be a straight line, but that can be a detriment. And we're already seeing it. And yes, I look for it because we've seen it from Aaron Rodgers. He thinks because he's been in the NFL for as long as he has, he's got some greater license to say whatever he wants, to believe whatever he wants, to give whatever input he wants, to act basically like a co-manager, a co-coach. But there are certain things you just don't do. And I don't think he understands that. You don't start questioning the methods of Mike Tomlin in your first training camp press conference. Oh, he likes to practice at the hottest time of the day. Well, that's interesting. No, it's not. It's mandatory. And that's what the coach wants. There's nothing interesting about it. It's what you do. Zero fun, sir. That's how he needs to be behaving because the teammates are going to be watching him. Is he really all in? That's the question. You either want to be a Steeler or you don't. Okay, he wanted to be a Steeler. He's here. Is he acting like a Steeler or is he not? That's the question. Russell Wilson say last year, gee, Mike Tomlin likes to practice at the hottest time of the day. That's interesting. Did Justin Fields say it? Kenny Pickett say it? Ben Roethlisberger, I don't know. He said some things on radio late in his career. Not late in his career, middle of his career. He finally stopped doing the radio spot. Everything Rodgers says is going to be scrutinized. That's why I've been saying he shouldn't do McAfee's show. And it's nothing against Pat. It doesn't help Rodgers in what he's trying to achieve. You want to be one of the 12 teams that are in the Super Bowl window? Focus only on football. Watch everything you say. Don't be passive aggressive. Don't act like the smartest guy in the room. Just focus on playing football. It's pretty simple. It really is. I just don't know that he sees it. I don't know that he cares. I think he's evolved past the things that otherwise would apply to football players. And we'll see if this laboratory experiment works in Pittsburgh this year. I don't think they're one of the 10 or 12 teams heading into the season, but they can play their way into it. Every team can play their way into it. I'm not going to write anyone off. I was on with Joe Rose earlier today, and we were just talking generally about, which teams can you write off? You can't write any off. I learned the hard way 2021. The Bengals have no chance to make the playoffs, and they almost won the Super Bowl. 2023, the Texans have no chance to make the playoffs. They make it to the final 8. Any team has a chance because if you can get out of the gates and win a couple of games and build some confidence, the next thing you know, you're in it. And the difference between the best teams and the worst teams is, from a talent standpoint, not what it used to be. Now, we have seen some teams that have cracked the code, which makes the league top-heavy. But at the bottom end, any of those teams, think of the worst team right now in the NFL, whichever team you would call the worst, that team has a chance to build enough momentum early, build some confidence, get some wins, and steal a playoff spot. Doesn't mean they're going to win the Super Bowl. But I'm not writing off anyone. And I'm not writing off the Steelers from being a playoff team. I think they're capable of being on the right side of 500. The question is, how good can they be? Are they in that window? And if they are in that window, can they really beat the Chiefs? Can they really beat the Bills? Do they have a shot in the postseason against the Ravens? Hey, the Texans in 2023, the year they had no chance to make it to the playoffs, in my opinion. Pittsburgh went down there early in the year and got their asses kicked by the Texans. So I know a lot's changed since then, but in today's NFL, these great teams come together and they figure things out and they stay great. And yes, having a great quarterback is the key. How great is Aaron Rodgers going to be? We shall see. The Browns have taken 4 quarterbacks to camp, and I wouldn't have done it, but the Browns is the Browns. It's hard for the rational mind to accurately predict the behaviors of the chronically irrational. And all due respect to the Browns, to Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta, the chief strategy officer. I've yet to see him come up with a good strategy, but it goes all the way to the top. Chief strategy officer may just be cover for whatever Jimmy Haslam wants to do. Because that seems to be what they do. Whatever Jimmy wants to do. You want Johnny Manziel? Okay. You want Deshaun Watson? Okay. But now they're caught up in this game where they know they're not going to keep all 4 of their quarterbacks, setting aside Deshaun Watson, who could still show up with a clean bill of health and make life very interesting for the Browns. Right now, you got Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. And all 4 of them are in camp. And Kevin Stefanski, the coach of the team, said yesterday, I'd like to name a starting quarterback sooner than later. Okay, good luck getting your guys ready. And the more that are there, the more it points to Flacco because he's been there. And he doesn't need the reps to be ready to go. Gabriel and Sanders need the reps. They're rookies. Pickett needs the reps. He's new to Cleveland. Flacco's back a year after they couldn't bring him back because the fans would have been demanding Flacco instead of Deshaun Watson, and Jimmy Haslam trying to chase his losses by justifying Deshaun Watson didn't want to bench Watson. They refused to bench. They were trying to make Watson happen. They were trying to just, if we keep going, maybe he'll eventually become the guy that he was in 2020 and previously, and it hasn't happened. And by all appearances, it's not going to happen. It'll probably happen when they cut him and he goes somewhere else. Anyway, this stubbornness by the Browns, this desire to flip one of the quarterbacks for assets, it's all about assets. Round 5, pick 144. Shedeur Sanders is there. Everyone's got him rated head and shoulders above all of the other available picks. We got to take him because it's great value. It's an asset. And, now we got 4 quarterbacks along with Deshaun Watson. What the hell are we going to do? Well, we'll make one of them into an asset. Anything other than winning is a problem. Whether it's money, whether it's playing this analytics-driven game of stockpiling draft picks and saving cap space. And look, just put together a football team with the goal of winning. And when you draft Dylan Gabriel in round 3, you're done with quarterbacks. If Shedeur Sanders is there in round 7, we don't care. We got our rookie. We're going to complicate our life from the standpoint of trying to win by adding another guy, especially a guy who brings the circus to town with him. And that's not a slap. It's just a recognition of reality. We already have our rookie. And now we're going to get the guy who's the biggest name in the draft because he's slipped and slid all the way down to 144. If your focus is winning, you don't do it. If your focus is other things, you do it. And that's what the Browns did. And that's why, to quote Juju Smith-Schuster once again, the Browns is the Browns. And they have to prove to us and everyone else that they've changed. And they haven't. And I don't think it's Stefanski. I don't think it's Barry. I don't know about DePodesta. I think it all comes from ownership. And sorry, Browns fans, you're stuck with ownership. Can't fire them. You're stuck with them. There was a rumor that emerged earlier this weekend. I don't know. Is it a rumor? You know, I don't want to completely discount what Colin Cowherd says about the subject, because every once in a while, like me, blind squirrel eats an acorn. He was making this argument for both Nick Saban and Arch Manning to end up in Cleveland next year. And would it surprise me if Jimmy Haslam decides to take a big swing on Nick Saban? No. Would it surprise me if the Browns are in position to get Arch Manning if he comes out after 1 year? No. They already hold Jacksonville's first-round pick. If the Browns are bad and the Jaguars aren't great, you have a couple of high first-round picks that can become the first overall pick. The Browns may earn the first overall pick. Who knows? But none of it would surprise me if that's what Haslam wants to do. And that's why the pressure's on all the quarterbacks in Cleveland, because none of them may be there next year. Or Gabriel could be there as a backup. Shadur could be there as a backup. But starter long-term, it could be none of the guys currently on the roster, including Watson, is the long-term answer in Cleveland. It could be that they are in position to get Arch Manning if he comes out after only 1 year, and who the hell knows what he's going to do. Saban would be an interesting choice as head coach. And I mention him because he was on Fox News this morning. Our friend Mike Rodak spotted it, wrote about it at 247sports.com. And he was pressed by Brian Kilmeade repeatedly on whether or not he's done coaching. And at the end of the day, Saban offered up a quote that was not a denial. He sees no opportunities right now that would entice him to coach. Okay, that implies there could be opportunities that emerge in the future, like after this season. Right now, all the jobs are taken. What opportunity would there be? Nobody's calling Nick Saban today and saying, hey, would you like to come coach the team? And any team that would even be in position to do it, you're already screwed. After this season, though, there may be an opportunity that would entice Nick Saban to coach. And the thinking is he's more likely to go to the NFL than to college. Now, look, I firmly believe that if the NCAA gets everything it wants from the federal government, more on that in a second, and they go back to the way it was before the NIL phenomenon, and Saban can go back to rigging the system in his favor and recruiting all the best players to wherever he goes, he may be interested in going back to college. I've always believed, and this goes back to his upbringing. There was a biography several years ago. He grew up not far from where I'm sitting. His dad was very demanding, perfectionist, and at a gas station, cleaning cars. Nick worked there. There's a spot on the hood. Got to keep going until you get every spot off the hood. That NFL blemish is the spot on the hood that I think still bothers him, and he'd like to rectify it. He didn't have a quarterback in Miami. He said before that if they had signed Drew Brees, he may still be in Miami. Now, I don't believe he'd still be there, but he may have been there more than 2 years. By the second year, he was miserable and he wanted to go back to college. As Jason Garrett told Dan Patrick the other day, and I've heard this before, I've said this before, Saban preferred college because at the NFL, you get 1 first-round pick. At college, you can recruit 10 of them if you're good. The reason he left, you had to start buying them, not recruiting them, and he couldn't compete on that level playing field with the richest programs. That's why I believe he got out. That's why I believe he decided he'd had enough. So he could go back to college, or maybe he could go to the pros if he had a franchise quarterback. Who knows? But he did not slam the door. He did not say, I'm not going to be the Alabama coach. Well, he did not say that again. He did not. Maybe he's learned from December of 2007 to never be unequivocal. Because the moment you are is the moment you end up being proven wrong. Speaking of this whole NIL thing. And when I saw the fact sheet that was quoted at frontofficesports.com that accompanied the executive order signed by the president regarding NIL, something that has no force of law, something that doesn't mean a damn thing. It's just grandstanding. It's clearly aimed at hurting the players and helping the programs. This notion of excessive litigation, that was the quote in the fact sheet. You know why there was excessive litigation? You know why? Because for decades, the NCAA and its members exploited players in violation of the federal antitrust laws. And finally, someone woke up and did something about it and filed lawsuits to enforce the antitrust laws because the schools were breaking them. They created the NCAA as this quasi-legitimate umbrella to allow them to say to their players, boy, we'd love to pay you, but we can't. NCAA rules. We'd love to give you that, but we can't. NCAA rules. So all of these independent businesses, and college is a business. I know it's this grandiose academia nonsense. Yeah, and then you get the bill. It's a business. It's a business masquerading as something with a higher ideal. It is across the country. It's what it is. Let's accept that. These are businesses. They come together under the umbrella of the NCAA to fix the price of the labor market. So it finally blows up in the faces of the NCAA and its member institutions. And now the NCAA and the schools want the other two branches of the federal government to save their ass instead of doing it themselves. If they do it themselves, they need a union. They don't want the union. Why? Because they don't want the players to collectively have power over the coaches, who are the emperors of all of these various towns where college programs are. You think Nick Saban wants to have a union rep saying, hey, coach, sorry, we can't have two-a-days anymore. We can't practice in pads again this week. We can't have another voluntary workout session where you run us until we're puking on our shoes. So, coach, you can't have one of your failed former players who's trying to get another shot in the NFL, who's 28 years old, come back and practice in full pads against 18-year-olds. Sorry, coach, you can't do that anymore. Bill Belichick loves college football. There's no restrictions on anything. Practice them as hard as you want to practice them. Coaches don't want to lose that. So, in lieu of having a union, maybe we can get Congress and or the president to help us out. And that's what they're doing. And the players are going to lose. And the players don't have a voice. They don't have a collective body that can push back. Who's lobbying for the players? Where's the group funded by the players that lobbies for the players? It's non-existent. So this is so predictable. You have primarily Republican House and Senate. And I'm sorry, folks, I'll stick to sports. Look, conservative is pro-business. Liberal, progressive, whatever label that hasn't been turned into a bad word by conservative media, whatever label you want to apply, they're pro-individual. But there's no lobby to go and try to create a groundswell to protect the players. And would it matter? Because again, currently the makeup of the government is it's more likely for the institutions to get what they want. And look at the reporting on the executive order on NIL. It's meant to limit what the players are making. We're in a capitalist society. I thought the idea was get paid what you can get paid for what your skills and abilities are. Capitalize. It's not the cap in capitalism isn't cap their earnings. Although from the business side, yeah, anything we can do to legitimately or illegitimately limit what we have to pay people, let's do it. And that's what they're trying to do. And it just bugs me. It bugs me that the players are going to get screwed, because I believe for years they were getting screwed, and it was great to see the walls get torn down, and now they're building the walls again, or at least trying to. Hopefully it won't work. Hopefully someone will stand up for the players, someone in a position of power, not just some idiot sitting in his Olive Garden kitchen with a microphone spouting off. Somebody who actually matters will stand up and you know, why do we watch college football? Why? We're watching for the players. The players are the game. I say that about the NFL, and I'll say it about college. We're watching for the players. The players should get paid. And the system has been corrupt, and it's exploited them, and it's wrong. And now the chaos that has emerged from all those years of the wrong thing being done. Oh, please save us. Please save us. It just pisses me off. All right, let's answer. Now that I'm in a good mood, let's answer some questions. Michael Cameron Vey, who will win the AFC South this year? It feels like the Texans might be headed in the wrong direction, and the rest of the division, they know who we mean. It's hard to figure out. Why do you think the Texans are headed in the wrong direction? The Texans made it to the final 8 last year, and they they have made changes aimed at getting better. I feel like the Texans are trying to go all in to compete with the Chiefs, who aren't dramatically better than the Texans. The Ravens, they gave the Ravens everything they could handle in the divisional round 2023 season. Second half, Lamar Jackson went in and gave a fiery halftime speech, used some language that can't repeat on at least broadcast TV, and they came out and pulled away from the Texans. But the Texans are not bad. And the Texans have overhauled the offensive line. They got rid of Bobby Slowick. They're making the offense better. They bring in Nick Chubb, who could maybe give the running game a little kick in the ass. So I think the Texans are the favorites, but could any of the other teams in the division win it? The Colts, hey, if Daniel Jones stabilizes the quarterback position, they've got talent. The Titans intrigue the hell out of me with Cam Ward. How much of a difference can he make as a rookie? Could he have an impact on the Titans as a rookie that C.J. Stroud had on the Texans as a rookie? Yeah, I think he could. The Jaguars, I don't know. A lot of change in 1 year. New coach, new GM, a lot of new players. That's a lot. That's a lot to expect a massive bump in 1 year. So in theory, any of them can. Texans are the favorites. If I thought another team could rise up in that division, it would be the Titans. And the Titans have been irrelevant for so long. They've had flashes, but Cam Ward could really be a difference maker. And they could be a team that rises up in the division and in the conference. John Ardell. We still don't know the motives behind the actions of J.C. Tretter and Lloyd Howell. Why would they do this? And is it likely someone else put them up to it for a reason? Look, the why has been a fascinating part of so much of the stuff that's happened with the NFL Players Association. Why would you bury a partial victory in the collusion case? Why would you hide a ruling that contains evidence that could be used as a hammer against the NFL from a PR standpoint, from a political standpoint, from a legal standpoint? Why would you do that? Why would you hide it? What were you trying to do here? And the why was as simple as Lloyd Howell wants his approach to look better, or I need to be more accurate in my conjugation. Lloyd Howell wanted his approach to be more effective than his predecessor because the selling point was, I'm going to do business. I'm not going to sue. I'm going to shake hands, and we're going to sit at the table, and we're going to get things done, and we're not going to fight. We're not going to be a thorn in the side. We're going to be a partner. That approach doesn't work. Fighting all the time doesn't work. Buddying up to the oligarchs doesn't work. You need a middle ground. And when you get a win, when you get leverage, you got to use it. You can't just do them a favor. Hey, I'll do you a favor here. I won't make a big deal about this. I could, but I won't, because I want to have the right relationship. Baloney. And to the extent that any of this was kept quiet to protect J.C. Tretter, either to hide the fact that he said nasty things about Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson didn't get a fully guaranteed contract from the Broncos, or as this quid pro quo to explain why the league buried the grievance ruling regarding J.C. Tretter encouraging disgruntled running backs to fake injuries. I mean, why would the league hide that? I know they told the teams about it. Why would they not tell the media about it? They own and operate a media conglomerate. Why would you not send that to one of the reporters to be featured on NFL.com and social media and NFL Network and wherever else NFL content is? That was the whole idea. Let's send a message. You better not fake injuries. So you get the win and you keep it quiet. Doesn't make sense. Only makes sense if there was a deal. And from the perspective of the union, none of it makes sense if the goal is to help the players. Because there isn't a whole lot of stuff that was done under Lloyd Howell that feels like it was there to help the players. It feels like it was there to help Lloyd Howell. And we may have more to say on that next week. I may have another visit with Pablo Torre in the cylinder, but J.C. Tretter's long-term goals, which may not have changed, frankly, they may just have been rearranged. His long-term goals may have been a factor. So This isn't uncommon. Yes, in theory, the union is there to promote the overall well-being and interests of the members. But there's power and there's money and people have ambition. And somebody's got to run this union. Might as well be me. Not me. I'm being theoretical, hypothetical. Not me. I'm still on the Mark Murphy train. Mark Murphy becomes available after today. They should call Mark Murphy. All right, a couple more questions. Craig, if the NFL Europe expansion doesn't actually happen, I don't want it and doubt it will, could we see a summer league NFL Europe style version again somehow? We have the stadiums here and it'll help pass the offseason way better. I guess Craig is in Europe. Look, they did NFL Europe. It started as the World League of American Football. It had different names. It was the World League. It was NFL Europe. It ended up being NFL Europa. They would have kept doing it if it made money. And if they thought it would make money, they would do it. Period. It's profit. There's no need to develop players, coaches, executives, officials. Everyone competes in the NFL fishbowl, and you sink or you swim. Oh, we could make some great stories. Well, great stories happen anyway. Somebody wins the job, and somebody plays the games. And it doesn't matter if it's a guy who played here, there, and bagged groceries and did this and finally got a foothold in NFL Europe like a Kurt Warner. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Costs too much to have a good story. We just want to make money. And we don't need to have this minor league to give people reps, because at the end of the day, there's 53 spots, 11 people play, and you earn it on the NFL practice field, regardless of whether you've had opportunities to get reps elsewhere. So if they could make money, they would do it. And if they ever come to the point where they conclude they will make money, they'll do it. It's that simple. If it's profitable, they'll do it. If it's not, they won't. And I'm surprised they did NFL Europe as long as they did, because they didn't make money off of it. And at the end of the day, they realized that this isn't a look. And they stopped NFL Europe the same year they started exporting games, 2007. If we're going to try to globalize the sport, let's not do it with a money-losing proposition. Let's do it with a money-making proposition. Let's carve off games, sell out stadiums, and go make the money with the real thing. Let's not give them NFL light. Let's give them NFL. And let's make money. And let's globalize the sport that way. Tyler Wood, who are some of your sleeper teams for the upcoming season? All of them. And this is one of the realities of today's media ecosystem. Everybody's got to take. Everybody's making the case for why this team, that team, the other team can make it to the playoffs. Every team has media that is specifically covering and in turn rooting for that team. Because if you're going to cater to the fans of a given team, you have to pander to the fans of a given team. I get it. It happens with newspapers. It happens with TV stations. It happens with blogs. Any group that covers one team has to pander to the fans of that team, or those people aren't going to come to their place of business. And what are we here for? What are we here for if not to attract the fans of the team we cover? So my point is, you look around, Cardinals blogs and websites, they'll make the case how the Cardinals can be a sleeper team. All 32 teams, all of them. They're making the case. The glass is half full. Please get excited. Please come consume our content and believe that this year could be the year. And you make that last as long as you can. That's why the NFL craves parity. You want as many fan bases to believe as deep into the season as possible that this year could be the year. And the best outcome for the NFL would have all 32 teams alive for a playoff berth and have all 14 spots decided on the final Sunday, Saturday, maybe Friday, maybe Thursday of the season. That's the best. That's why the commissioner wanted to change the playoff structure. Wants more Week 18 games that mean something. And the more teams that are alive, the more those games mean. The longer teams are alive, the more people are engaged. The more they're checking out the Cardinals website, the Jaguars website, all the teams that fall off. Because when we had our prior content management system and there was a much deeper and more robust way to track traffic to different pages, I would see the traffic to, the team pages for the teams. Once you put the fork in them, their fans go find other stuff to do. Once you know it's over, if it's over in November, I mean, I guess I'll pay attention, but I don't care like I did. I'm not gonna go to all of these different websites and read everything I can about the team. Maybe I will once we get closer to the end of the season, because then we're 0-0 again, along with everyone else. So my point is, in this day and age, there are no sleeper teams. Every team is a sleeper team. Every team can win the Super Bowl. Every team is going to the playoffs. Every team is the greatest team we've ever seen. It makes it impossible to say, hey, watch this team, because somebody's already saying it. Hey, you know what? I really think this team could be good. Yeah, every media outlet that covers that team is already saying, hey, this team could be pretty good. So we'll see. But through all that, we are still at a point where it's the Eagles, it's the Chiefs, it's the Bills, it's the 49ers. I feel bad for the 49ers. It felt like they were going to have one of those years where nobody expected anything from them. That's not going to happen. The 49ers are still viewed as a team that can be pretty good, and they could win the Super Bowl this year. They could maybe be the 1 seed, and they could play the Super Bowl at home this year. They could win it all this year. Yes, they could. So there aren't a lot of great teams, but there's a lot of teams that are in the mix, and there are no sleepers. They're all wide awake. Every team is wide awake. Every fan is wide awake. Everyone thinks that their favorite team could at least make it to the playoffs. I don't know that Cardinals fan, Jaguars fan, Titans fan, Saints fan, Giants fan, I don't know that they can delude themselves into thinking they have a chance to win the Super Bowl, but they at least can delude themselves into thinking they have a chance to make it to the playoffs. And we've seen it before. Once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. Here's what's going to happen now. We're done. That's it. We're closing the books on PFT PM as a daily show until next year, when PFT Live goes into its hiatus. But PFT PM can reemerge at any given moment like whack-a-mole if the news requires. Tune in Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, Peacock, Sirius XM 85, for a live 2-hour program. And on Wednesday and Thursday of next week, we will be in Canton, Chris and I together in Chris's favorite road location of all time for PFT Live. Friday, I'll be back here. I decided, why hang around after the game, after I'm clear on Thursday night? I'm going to make the drive home, and I'll be ready to go next Friday for PFT Live from the usual spot. That's our short-term schedule. Long-term schedule is football is back. No days off unless and until we take days off. And when we do take days off, greater chance you're going to hear from me here on PFT PM. Check us out around the clock at profootballtalk.com. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you Monday morning. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.